Hello and good day, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to today's show titled Change Starts at the Top. Now, today we're discussing how to inspire teams with neuroscience for change. My name is Lori Quackenbush. I'm with APMG International out of New York, and I'm absolutely delighted to be your host today. We have a really great group of panelists and a lot to talk about, so we'll get right into it. Now, we do have Shanice and Alanis from APMG are on our socials, so don't forget to get involved in the chat. And we'd love to hear from you. I'm very thrilled to have three very, very distinguished experts with us today who bring very unique perspectives on leading and sponsoring organizational change through neuroscience, leadership strategies, and agile practices. So we're going to jump right in and meet them. First, we start out with Pauline Melnyk. Pauline, did you want to say a little bit about yourself? Welcome.
Thanks, Lori, and it's a pleasure to be here. And as a ATO here in North America, I'm Melnyk Consultancy. I've been here for 8 years as a founder and director. I'm a master certified coach and an accredited change professional, and absolutely enjoy being able to deliver these courses available here in North America. So
we appreciate you. And this is a big deal coming to North America, Neuroscience for Change. So we're really glad to have so many people registered for this event too. So wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. And next we have, I'm happy to introduce Melanie Frankel. Melanie, hi.
Hello, I'm the co-author with Tibby of the latest book, Neuroscience for Change at Work, upon which the course that we're talking about today is based. It's a standard delivered 2-day course, and it's a real eye-opener. We wrote the book because we think that change management is moving into a place where perhaps a more scientific view of how we engage, how we persuade and influence people to get on board with change is absolutely vital. And it's certainly an incredibly popular subject. So I'm delighted to be talking about it today. Actually, that was my 10th book. So I have written a number of books about project, program and change management over the years. I'm also, alongside Tibby, the chief examiner for this qualification, and I also run the Agile Change qualifications with this exam board, APMG International, and I'm an advisor to a number of boards globally on how they run their change initiatives.
Good stuff. A lot of experience there for sure. Speaking of Tibisay, Vera, did you want to say hello and tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, thank you, Lori, and thank you everyone for being here. Yes, I'm Tibi. I'm also the co-author together with Mel of the Neuroscience for Change at Work, and also the creator of the PEPE model, which is the model that the book is based on. We will be talking a little bit about that. I'm a neuroscientist, and I didn't start my career as a neuroscientist. I started more within change and investment banking. So being able to put it together, it has been a pleasure for me during the last 15 years. So the idea of writing the book and to creating the certification of neuroscience for change is all my experience in trying to make sure people adapt and to see change from a positive perspective, from the brain perspective. We can really but adapt to change, which is, I think, what is happening so much. And these days, with so many changes out there, we thought it's so important, this book and this certification of today is happening.
What do you mean?
So
what changes? What changes are happening, Tibisay? I feel like if there was any better time to have the show, it's right now with all the change that's happening everywhere globally. So I'm really glad we're doing the show today. Now we have a ton of questions that we're going to dive into today, but I do want to tell everybody that obviously we have an hour-long show here, but stay put towards the end because Pauline does have, a nice discount for some courses. She's going to talk about upcoming courses she's got. So feel free to, or please stick around, stay tuned for some great incentives at the end of the show today. So without further ado, let's get right into some questions. Are we ready, folks? Lots to talk about today. All right. First question is for Tibisay. As the creator of the PEPE model, could you provide us with a high-level overview of its 4 domains and 8 dimensions? And how does this model empower leaders to address pain points within their teams during transitions?
Big question. My pleasure. Basically, PEPE model is just a very friendly model, very easy and practical to use about applying what we know, why the brain resists change, why we are wired to resist change. And PEPE stands for basically pain, because as we all know, when we go through change, we feel pain.
Yeah.
What am I going to do with the new operating system? What am I going to do within the, how is it impacting me? Is it painful? What am I going to do? This is pain, and that's the reason why we resist.
Right.
Now, PEPE model also offers dimensions, 2 dimensions for each of them. It is, then we have the E, which is from energy. We know our brain consumes too much energy, and that's why we resist change. Who don't know that change consumes so much energy? So the model also provides some practical ideas about how can we release energy to the brain and at organizational level to support us. And then we have the other P, which is peaks and valleys. It is about how do we make sure we reset in times of change, how we make sure we actually use what we call the good stress to provide us with adrenaline, to provide us with dopamine, with the neurobiology to work for us rather than against us. And the last one is the E for error. Usually our brain is there trying to spot any difference between actuals and expectations. And as we all know, change usually doesn't meet our expectations because we don't know what happened next. So that is what PEPE model is. It usually empower leaders and empower us as an individual because very easy, it provides us a framework in helping us in having the neurobiology to work for us rather than against us. I give you a very personal example, something very quickly. If at the moment of the pandemic, right, where we didn't know what was coming next, it felt very painful. How is it going to impact me? Unconsciously, this happened in the brain. So by finding ways that I look into the positive, I celebrate, and I joined people who feel like you and passing exactly the same for something specific, that release oxytocin. So that is the way that we work with the model. Also in terms of energy, we usually feel fatigue. This is all this change fatigue. By trying to put ourselves out of our comfort zone within a psychological safety, we can take advantage, and leaders can take advantage of the good adrenaline as well. Well, I hope that answered your question, Lori.
Absolutely. I mean, amazing stuff. Really, really good stuff. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. All right, Shanice, would you mind setting us up with our next question? I know we have a lot to get through. We're going to try to get through all of our questions today. So this one is for Pauline. Pauline, as a leadership coach, you've worked with leaders under immense pressure. I think we're all under a lot of pressure right now, right? Can you share some techniques that leaders can actually use to build emotional and cognitive resilience within their teams while maintaining their own balance? What are your thoughts?
To what that Tibisay said, the PEPE model itself, it's not just about the science behind things, it's about the practical application that leaders can take forward. And one of the key things about this leadership work is that change is constant. And that's our first reframe for our brain, is that it's not going to be, sort of that it stops at some particular deadline. It's going to be constant, and it's going to be full on for all of us. And so we need these models to actually be able to help us have that conversation with our teams and actually disperse some of this emotional and cognitive resistance and build in that active resilience for our teams. And so how would you do that in practical real terms? So what I'm doing with our leadership clients is that we're working through the change that they might be going through, And we're talking about how do they develop their teams in a way that takes into consideration these reframes.
Right.
And so the first reframe is around a pause and being able to pause that moment in their organization and find out, be intentional about it and give them space to be able to absorb the information. We know we've got information coming in at us at 100 miles an hour. And so how can we moderate that? So those simple check-ins with your team is one of those key pieces, and intentional meeting design, intentional spaces around our training and design, and being able to really reframe the dialogue we're having. So catch little words, sort of when I'm coaching those leaders, they'll come up with the buts. How do we reframe that to an and? How do we reframe it to a what if rather than we can't? And so it's these little reframes that our leadership teams have been craving. A little story on that, Laurie, was really around, I was working with a leadership team and they had not seen themselves in the problem. And a simple conversation with them about the model and about what's kind of going on for their teams, they were able to say, oh, we're the problem. How can we reframe that? And so now they're they see the immediate benefit, right? So it's not just a model. We're not teaching you how to be neuroscientists. We've got the experts that have written the books, and what we're doing is putting it into practical application, and that's what you're going to find in the course, all of these practical applications. So thanks for your question.
Yeah, great response too. And I think you just hit the nail on the head. I think like we're between the PEPE and talking all this. I mean, we're all going through this right now. We're all going through the pain. We're all trying to figure out those little nuances. And I like the idea of taking a minute and pausing and redirecting and almost putting that mirror up, right, to say, what can I do different and better, and how are we gonna move forward with so much change and things that's going on. So great stuff. Love having such great expertise here today. All right, our next question, we'll move right along here. This is for Tibisay as well. What neuroscience-backed practices can leaders adopt to maintain their energy and mental well-being while leading others through change? This is a good one. Mental well-being. We all need some of that today, right?
That's a great question, Laurie, especially because I have seen a lot, right, especially at an organizational level, that people now are really taking care about well-being.
Yeah.
Right? And especially I think is so important during times of change. What I have seen during times of change is people become cynic, right? To me, this is one of the biggest issues, is the cynicism, and cynicism impact our well-being, right? Physically and emotionally as well. And also what I have seen is that change fatigue, that lack of energy, that obviously that impact also the well-being. So if we think about neuroscience and we learn a little bit what kind of neurotransmitters, neurobiology provide us energy. For example, very quickly, I can explain you and introduce here dopamine. I think has become probably used to be a terminology that nobody knew, but these days I think everyone have heard about dopamine. But dopamine is a neurobiology that it comes usually when I'm hunting things and trying to complete something, right? And to be able to come in, people need to take a little bit of risk and they are hunting for something. But if our brain perceives danger in it, if our brain perceives like I'm not safe in it, rather than dopamine, which is the neurotransmitters that will give us excitement, the motivation, will actually release adrenaline. And more than adrenaline, it will release noradrenaline that it will keep us hypervigilant.
Right.
So by learning small things like this and then put it into practical way, we can, and I give you an example, if people at work and during times of change feel like they are not going to be judged, they are not going to be penalized because they made a mistake, which we call it psychological safety, then people can positively take risk and take advantage of the dopamine. Here we go.
Right.
And also, I give you another example in terms of well-being and dopamine. By promoting people to come with their own aha moment, by promoting people to come with their own insight, that release dopamine as well. And people feel that they own it. And because they own it, they feel motivated. And when I feel motivated, then I release a dopamine, and it's become a cycle as well. Then in terms of also well-being, it's about how do I build relationship between everybody within the team. As a leader, it's so important that I can release, for example, oxytocin, which is that neurobiology that it helps us to build trust. But at the same time, when we have high level of oxytocin, the level of cortisol goes down, and that improves our well-being. And there are many things we can practically do. Like, for example, if we are working towards the same objective, if I involve end users talking about change right from the beginning, they feel that they are part of the group. If I feel a sense of belonging, I will release more oxytocin. Level of cortisol goes down. So there is a lot we can learn only by being informed about how we can push certain biologies. I always like to say it is much easier to work with the biology in our side than rather than against us. And it plays a big point in well-being.
Wow, thank you so much for that. So interesting. So interesting how you're tying it all back to just the mental well-being. Amazing. Good stuff. All right, we'll keep going. Next question, Shanice, if you don't mind. Now, this one is going to you, Melanie. So let's talk about sponsorship dynamics. How can executive sponsors and leadership teams align their efforts to support agile change, particularly in a neuroscience-informed way? That's a good one.
Yeah, I think one of the most impactful webinars I've been doing in the last year or so is pointing out how a more agile approach to change, working in incremental, iterative ways, chunking up change into smaller pieces is actually incredibly brain smart, and the neuroscience is there to prove that. And I think that's incredibly helpful for senior leaders who the pull is always going to be towards wanting to plan everything up front and deliver it as one complete change. The problem with that is that, as Tibi's starting to talk about, the well-being is that actually you feel overwhelmed by the amount of work to be done. So you're not being driven by an energy coming from dopamine and that anticipation of success, but actually you're on a very fast moving treadmill that never seems to end, and therefore you're powered by adrenaline and noradrenaline, and that's not a sustainable change biologically. So I think there's a well-being argument to why we perhaps work in a more agile way that can sometimes attract senior leaders, because they do have an overarching obligation to staff welfare. But I think when the boards I advise, wherever they are in the world, quickly get the joke that perhaps working in smaller pieces also gives them the time for reflection being about a better quality of idea. We talk a lot in the course about the importance of insights and having those moments of discovery. And at senior leadership level, that translates into creating a culture of innovation, which for a lot of senior leaders, that's actually in their job description right now. My own experience at a very practical level is that working with teams to come up with an agile plan. How are we going to break this change down to smaller chunks? How are we going to deliver a smaller outcome, maybe sort of slice through and deliver it for one customer type or for one location or one type of transaction? And then we can build on that with the next iteration and the next one.
Yeah.
That's always been an agile cycle, but I now find that applying the neuroscience has actually increased the importance of the reflective time between those iterations. And normally we will sort of do some kind of retrospective and look back and how could we have done this better? But there's a couple of points in there. Number one, let's lengthen the amount of time because we want people to genuinely have the time to have insights. But secondly, let's not turn that retrospective into what could we have done better, because that's starting from a very negative perspective, and actually that doesn't build motivation and that doesn't create psychological safety. So there's the questions that I ask senior leaders to think about how they want to draw more from their teams. And the second thing is to give them the time to do that. And I spend a lot of time talking about, you've just invested in this part of the change. If you apply some brain smart neuroscience to this, you will recognize the importance of sort of squeezing the most value out of what you've just done by having a period of reflection. That's not just, oh, let's sit about and do nothing for a few weeks. That's actually working through activities that draw out a greater understanding and more ideas and opportunities for how what we've just done can be applied further. So I think one of the feedbacks we've had from people on the course is that they recognize when talking to their own senior leaders that perhaps an understanding of neuroscience increases the credibility of the things that they've always been saying. But as somebody said to me, it sprinkles some scientific stardust on what I'm saying, and I get listened to more than I have done before.
I love that. Scientific stardust. Makes a lot of sense. It does. It gives you some more credibility if you've taken the time to understand the neuroscience behind things. It's
and
really
I think that's why a certification offered by APMG and delivered by Pauline's accredited training organisation, ATO, is so incredibly important, because I think that certification provides evidence. It provides that confidence boost, because when you're in change, often we find that we're up against other people's resistance to change.
Oh, sure.
And being able to sit back and go, really know my stuff, I've got a certification in this, can be just a little confidence boost. But it also evidences to people, maybe you should take me seriously, because I've actually studied this stuff.
Absolutely. Obviously, as an APMG employee, I'm all about certification. I just think, you know, having that little credibility to say, look, I took accountability for this. I went through a course. I actually took the time to take the time to really understand the nuances of this is just so powerful. And like you said, gives people are more likely to actually take the time to listen to what you have to say. So absolutely makes tons of sense. Great stuff. All right, we're going to keep going and get to some more of these questions. Shanice, what's our next one? So this is for Pauline. So Pauline, from your experience, what are the most common mistakes leaders make in change sponsorship, and how can neuroscience help address these pitfalls?
Well, Melanie's been stepping into the conversation very clearly about all of those mistakes that our leaders actually make. And, you know, Tibisay's model is bringing that together in the sense that, you know, sort of we have some really practical brain hacks. But where our leaders are in this spot now where they can actually want to actually take the materials through the conversations that we're having in these courses and apply it directly with their teams, right? So the common mistakes that you see is usually you will see, you know, things like micromanagement, right? We're actually trying to solve a problem by micromanaging our staff, and our staff are pushing back and saying, no, we don't need to do that. Additionally, we give them too much scope and we don't give them very little direction.
Right.
And we don't have any clear expectations, and we give them additional information that they don't need. It's not in the right timing. And we're overloading our teams with the pressures that we are perhaps feeling. So taking a measured look as a leader at our own well-being, our own impact on the systems that we're working, and really reflecting on our social and our emotional and our environmental impact, you know, really can help us look at what's the trust we're building in our groups, what's the relationships that we're building in our teams. And as leaders, if we are looking at a figure that says on a scoreboard that we have a lack of engagement, well, I got to take that to seriousness. I've got to say, this is my part to play in this. And how do I do that differently? How do I take that into consideration? We're working with human beings.
Right.
Our technology is supporting us. Our technology is helping us speed up the world, speed up how much information we're absorbing. However, we need to rebalance that cognitive load and really take care of our people. And it's not just about their well-being, it's about our own well-being. And so taking a measured approach to our own awareness in that particular moment. And, things like coaching can help any change effort, right? Being able to step into that conversation, having a coach on the side that says, hey, look, did you observe in that meeting? This is how it went. And this is what I noticed. And really picking up on those nuances. So it's not just about, sort of what's happening to the employees and their teams. It's about really taking a measured look at our own leadership styles, being able to be progressive enough and authentic enough, and, regenerate our whole practice and have regenerative practices to enable sustainability, right? Because our people are at the base of it. Our change. The change won't work without everybody. And, sort of we need to take care of those that are not changing. Now, we can look to what's currently happening in North America at the moment. And we could say, this is not an easy thing for us to be in this situation. And we could blame on the situation of leadership that we currently have, no matter where you are in the Americas. It gives you an opportunity to say, hey, what if it could be different? Can I take a measured approach, and can I work with my teams, really come back to my base of who's in there and really sponsor them from that particular moment, right? What do we want to achieve? How do we want to do it? And sometimes systems need to break in order for us to remake them. And so do we have the capacity to be able to take on that new information right now and to deliver that in a way that helps them attach and be able to work forward? So neuroscience offers us a lot in the leadership space, and it gives us an opportunity for us to really use the neuroscience for change, and particularly in the work setting, to help the teams and the leaders all progress towards a common goal, and to take that measured approach as to have them self-aware what's noticing going on for me. I think that every leader that's been taking the course to date with Tibisay and myself and Melanie and Tibisay in their course, it gives us an opportunity to see that they're coming because they're looking for refuge in an opportunity to see it's not working. I need to do something differently. And this gives them that ability, that capability to be able to do that. So I love working with leaders in that way.
And it's just so interesting. Like I said, I think we hit the nail on the head with the timing of having this show today. And I made a couple of notes that I thought, and I know it's just amazing how much it all overlaps with the questions and the answers we're having today. But, I'm seeing a lot of things. I love what you said about systems need to break. That's just so true, right? Love it or hate it. It's where we're at right now. And everybody's, talking about right now with, the mental health, and, keep talking about kind of, putting that reflective spin on things. And, I love the idea of the biology, getting into the biology of it. It's just so, ingrained in all of us. And, I like what you guys are saying about, the measured approach and looking at, we need to take time, reflect on things and take a minute and understand what has to, be done to make change, less painful. So good stuff.
If we can make it less painful, let's make it less painful. And at least recognize where the pain is, that we can actually do something about it. And so what do we need as a collective? What do we need to do?
Yeah, I think the course and particularly the PEPE model has so many. Well, there's 5 practical techniques that are associated with reduction of pain, and 5 practical techniques that are associated with the maximizing of pleasure. And then again, you've also got 5 techniques that are dedicated to reducing the energy required for change. And again, that has a very big impact on the perception of how painful, how distracting, how much of a call on my time this change will be. So I really like the course for the practical techniques that it gives. So this is not a theoretical course in any way. This is about, but how practically do we make that happen in the workplace?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm just going to make a note right now. We're getting some really interesting comments in on our social on the chats. So I'm just going to mention this. So this is a comment from somebody in our audience saying, U.S. we're talking about it, saying U.S. politics is triggering this on all sides right now, which we know. So there's just so much noise, as so many statements, yet the legal implications and chaos. There's just so much to unpack here. So thank you for that from Lisa Singer. Very, very interesting. So everybody's kind of, I guess, feeling the same pains, just trying to muck our way through it and just figure out how to get to the other side of the mountain, I guess, here. So again, our timing for the show couldn't be better if we tried. All right, why don't we get on to our next question? Shanice, do you mind? This one is also for you, Melanie. What trends in neuroscience and agile change should executive leaders be preparing for the next 3 to 5 years? Where's your crystal ball, Melanie?
I'm often called into the boardroom to answer this question by interested executives. So I'll give the same answer I give them. I think the fundamental longer term trend over the next few years is that senior leaders are not sponsoring changes or individual changes. They are actually leading a transforming organization. And therefore, I think neuroscience has a massive part to play, because as soon as you start to think, we're not talking about an individual change that we're taking through a sort of transition curve, but actually we are dealing with individuals who are being hit by change from all angles. And at any one time, they're in the middle of some changes, finishing off some, and new ones are coming at them. How do we engage people, because they are being affected by so many sources of change and are at so many different states of change themselves? And for me, neuroscience cuts straight through that, because as Tibby often says on the course, the stakeholder that we're engaged with is actually the brain of the individual. And so I find that from senior management, she's very clever, from a senior management perspective, neuroscience is so incredibly helpful, because it takes you away from those sort of more linear models that I don't think are serving the marketplace very well at all, and speak directly to the challenge, which is, how do you deal with multiple simultaneous change?
Right.
And I think it provides us with techniques for how we cope with trying to get a picture across of how people are feeling. So we create the right environment using neuroscience. So whatever stage of change people are at, they will be successful. Why that is so important is because as soon as you elevate senior leaders up to talking about leading a transforming organization and not just sponsoring an individual change, the objectives change. The objective of achieving benefits is always there. Whatever the benefits promised in the business case that justifies the investment, they must be realized. It's non-negotiable. But in a world of multiple simultaneous change, there is a second objective for senior leaders, and that is that the experience of change is positive. If it is not, then they suffer, because staff will walk. We already have the Great Resignation, as it was named.
Yeah.
But it isn't just that people will leave the organization and the corporate memory and the productivity that goes with that. I often stand in the boardroom and it says, as soon as any one member of your staff leaves, you've incurred somewhere between 25% and 35% of their salary costs immediately, just in recruitment charges, but also in that loss of corporate memory and the reduction in productivity as you bring the next person up to speed. That doesn't even get us started on if you have a gap while you're trying to fill the role. The second thing is that if people are having a poor experience, but they stay, you've got the issue of withdrawal of effort and interest, which means that every other change is so much harder to land. And as soon as you start to think, and actually we're not just dealing with one change, there are lots of others, they're coming at us like buses. And therefore, if you negatively impact the environment in which people are working and they withdraw that effort for change, you have shot yourselves in the foot, because every change that comes after that is going to be so much harder. And therefore, that's a very quick summary of a very long boardroom discussion. I was with a global board the other day. I'm currently working with a large bank in Canada. I'm working with another financial institution in insurance in North America. And that conversation went on for several hours as they fired questions at me. But they absolutely recognise that that is the situation they are in, and giving it some labels and then saying, by the way, being brain smart will dig you out of this hole is a very powerful answer.
Love that. Brain smart. That's going to be my keyword for the rest of the day. Brain smart. Good stuff. Thank you so much, Melanie. It's great. Great. All right, we still have some time, so we'll continue on with some more questions. Shanice, can you give us the next one? So this is for Pauline. So Pauline, from your experience, I think we went that one already. I was going to say, we already had that question. All right, still for Pauline, so thanks for being kind. How can leaders balance the need for agility and stability in an environment of constant change, like now?
I mean, tapping into what, we're all experiencing, and we're all got this, okay, what do we need? What do I need to do differently?
Mm-hmm.
And Melanie, and Tibisay have brought such good and rich conversation around, sort of treating the brain as a stakeholder, somebody key in our organization.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're thinking about the other thing that we're doing is we're bringing in technology as a stakeholder into our organization, helping to actually design what the change experience is all about is the most important thing for agility and stability, is having some ability to actually design what the end state will be. We talked about objectives of change. What's the true outcome that you want to actually have? And this is what leaders care about, is the outcome.
Right.
And moreover now, when we're designing at the very beginning of our change plans, at the very beginning of our work, and working with leaders and executive sponsors, is around what's the experience that we want them to have. Now, this has been done very, very well in hospitality. We always think about the guest and what experience they want to have. And we can apply that to our corporate experience, and we can apply that to our government experience as an employee or as a leader. And we can then take that moment and think about, okay, what is it that I need to actually do differently? And so a lot of design space, a lot of co-design and collaboration with our teams, opening up the space for coaching and mentoring and knowledge transfer as a key component to any business's bottom line, and helps you have that conversation in a deeper way.
Right.
So what conversations need to be reframed in your organization as we go through this? Because it is really about, you're noticing it. You're noticing the shift. And you're noticing, even just having a mindset shift. How do I do that?
Right.
And Tibisay raised the point of having aha moments. If we haven't built in the aspect of having an aha moment, an insight, an opportunity where we can share that with others, then it really leaves us to an unfulfilled desire or need. And that's where the frustration might build. Okay.
Right.
And so have we created the space for not just to, to come to the table and say, I have this need, and it's actually, it's not really a need, it's a want. Sort of it's get to the bottom of it. What's at the value of this? What's the experience that we want to have with those employees, and purposefully design that. Now, you can look at, what's happening currently in North America, and it might be a conversation around a tariff, or it might be a conversation around, some other political piece there.
Right.
But every business person is having that conversation right now. What does this mean to my business, and how does my business need to shift? What new relationships do I need to form? And so those relationships, one is the relationships with my employees, relationships with any of my contractors and my other stakeholders. And then, as we shift, huge systems design, healthcare, manufacturing, government, when we're moving that huge shift, it means that we need to bring people along the journey as well, in a well state. And I'm aware of, sort of some aspirational goals. I mean, Bhutan did it with their authentic happiness movement, and it gives them a chance to actually do that. And they're moving now towards wellness. What does wellness mean to their country as a number one outcome? So if this is the experience that we want our organizations to do, and we can say, okay, Canada, US, what's the experience we want to create? Because status quo is no longer there.
Right, right. Phenomenal. I just feel like my brain is going off with all the things that everybody's dealing with right now. And I like what you said about, bringing people along, but in a healthy way, maybe not kicking and screaming, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, this
We
is
can't stay where we were because
no,
it's no longer exists.
no,
So we have to take from today and how do we move forward? And as a coach, that's what we're doing with our clients. We're always moving them forward.
right.
We're delving into the past and we're grabbing what might have worked for us and served us, and learning from it. But now we're applying that forward
Yeah.
focus. So.
Yeah. It just hits home in so many ways, I'm sure, for so many people. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in, right? This makes sense for everybody. Everybody right now. This change that we're all going through is not, industry agnostic. It's just for everybody. Everybody. All right, I think we have time for some more questions. Shanice, do you mind down up the next one? Okay, so Tibisay, this one's going to be for you. So, how does an organization's culture impact its ability to adopt agile change methods? And what role do leaders play in shaping this culture? That's a great question.
That's a great question. And let me just pick up to what just Pauline and Melanie been saying about trying to get change as a positive experience, which I think is the idea or entire idea of this certification.
Yeah.
It's how do we make sure we create a culture where people can get that positive experience to avoid all the withdrawal that Melanie was talking about, avoiding the cynicism I was talking earlier. So definitely that culture will impact how we perceive that change as a positive or negative. Now, what I would say is from the brain perspective, our brain basically is kind of binary. It will perceive something as a threat or as a reward, right? And if perceive it as a threat, the type of behaviors that as a human being, I will display are kind of more anger, more aggressivity. Yes, I will have some positive as well. Some of the threat is I will act faster, and so on. Now, if I perceive the world more as a rewarded state, I will be much more open for learning, and I will also be much more open for change, to adopt a wider point of view. I will listen more and I will become much more creative. So, to your question, it's so important to align what do we want to achieve? What are we after? Are we after innovation? Are we after creativity? If so, what is the neurobiology that I want to promote?
Right.
If I'm moving people in a state of threat, what I will have is people more hyper-vigilant, much more close to learn. Does it support creativity and innovation? That's it. And I think very little people are actually aligned both. I'm very happy when I meet with a senior executive, with CEOs, that it says, oh, I didn't know how much actually the neurobiology drives us. I didn't know that part of our culture. I'm trying to be much more agile, but I'm pushing with a long-term projects. So if I want to be agile, I cannot build peaks and peaks and peaks of stress, peaks of dopamine. No, if I want to be much more agile, I need to remove the overwhelm of the employees. And I need to do that at a cultural level. For example, if I create psychological safety within an organization, that already will decrease the perception of pain. Right? Because if I made a mistake in trying new things, in operating in a new way of working, in a new environment, right, then I will be much more rewarded. I will be having less pain. right? So that is where we need to align the culture with what we want to achieve. Also, I give you another example. If in an organization that I need to promote a little bit of more fast, dynamic environment, but at the same time, I need to be innovative, which I think is probably most of the organizations at the moment, isn't it? And having the contradiction of both.
Right.
And having the contradiction of this hypervigilant threat, I need to finish something tomorrow, but at the same time, I need to go and rest. And that is where it becomes so important, the peaks and valleys of the PEPE model.
Right.
I think the idea, the key of high performance, the key of high performance culture that support agility and productivity is where we allow high peaks or middle peaks, depending on the appetite of the employees, of adrenaline, of a little bit of threat, with a good caution of that psychological safety.
Right.
So we get the advantage of the threat system. But then we have that sweet spot as well of the reward, where people can jump in and out of what they want. So learning to keep that peaks, but then also goes to the valleys, also go to the reset. And when we talk about the valleys, it's not only about the valleys of the stress, of the threat system, it is also about the reward. If we remain too much on the peaks of hunting, and completing project after project, even if I perceive it positive, my brain will release a lot of dopamine. If I'm used to high level of dopamine, the brain will get used to that. And every time that I need to feel motivated, I will need to release more and more dopamine. Basically, those are the basis of addiction.
Right.
The dopamine.
I was just going to say addiction. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what it is. So if I remain too much in the reward, too much in the high level of dopamine, I will be addictive.
Right.
The basis level of dopamine to feel motivated will increase. And that is all up to the culture that I create. What do I want? How do I create that sweet spot? And Agile, as Melanie earlier say, it is a great approach from a smart perspective of dealing with change as well. Why? Because we're having kind of peaks and valleys. What I would say, even if we go with an agile way of approaching change, we need to take the time to remain in the valleys, to reflect, to find meaning, to allow people to come with their own insights, reset. By doing that, we make sure the brain will not maladapt, as we say in neuroscience. The brain works very well with fluctuations of highs and low. And this is actually the fact of active resilience. And we as a leaders and have the responsibility to create a culture that promote the peaks and valleys.
Right. Love that. Love that. Just my mind is blown with all of this because it's so just seems so spot on, just the peaks and valleys and everything we're all just going through right now. This is great stuff, guys. Really,
where innovation happens.
Absolutely. I love that. Okay, I think we have time for another question or so. Okay, so this one is going to go to Melanie. So Melanie, sustaining change after the implementation phase is often a challenge. What leadership behaviors are critical for ensuring long-term success? Behaviors by leadership.
I think when we talk about sustaining change, what we're talking about is ongoing ownership by individuals. And I think that comes down to a thread that runs through the Neuroscience for Change course. And in fact, the entire book is about how we give respect and show value to people, how we give them as much empowerment and control as possible. We can tie that back in the PEPE model to showing how that reduces pain, but also increases pleasure for them. So I think it's about that shift to the ownership, and nobody knows how better to change a process than the person who actually carries it out. I think a lot of the work that I do in building capability for team leaders, supervisors, and operational managers is at that sharp end of change. There's always going to be, at a senior leadership level, the ideas of what the change should achieve and what the strategic value of that change is. But if you want the change to live on and actually be adopted, it becomes the new way of working, then everybody who has to work differently has to see themselves in the change, has to feel valued, has to feel that they've got a part to play, that they will be listened to. And I passionately believe that the very practical nature of the PEPE model, particularly at the start of reducing people's perception of how overwhelming and how difficult and how threatening the change will be, is incredibly important. I think the techniques for how do we increase the pleasure and how do we generate energy for making change, that is crucial to sustaining the change. So ownership is one thing, resilience is another. And resilience with the practical techniques in the Neuroscience for Change at Work course actually runs as a thread all the way through that. So you walk away feeling like I've got actions I can take to get us to that point of the change becomes the new norm. And that for me is what sustaining change has always meant.
Yeah, absolutely. Just phenomenal stuff. All right, I think we have time to wrap this up, and we're going to take this over to Pauline. Pauline, tell us what's next. And I know we've got some upcoming courses, so tell us all about it.
Yeah, we do have some.
I'm signing up right now. I'm signing up.
I just want to tap into, sort of Melanie's Agile Change piece there, because this is really a compendium piece when we're looking at how we do things. We look at the Agile Change, we look at the Agile Coaching, and then we enhance it with the Neuroscience of Change. Right? So Neuroscience for Change. At work, even if you just read the book, you're going to get so much value, right? It should be a bestseller on your reading list for 2025. However, the course helps you put it into practical into application.
Right.
But it also gives you an opportunity to work with colleagues from all different industries. And many of my courses, we find like-minded individuals forming in each of those particular groups, right? So they become a really close cohort over that period, and they share the knowledge with each other. So then the next course, Tibisay and I are bright and early tomorrow. We're doing a full day, 12th and the 13th. We're doing the full day courses. Tibisay will join me in the morning because I know internationally it's a little bit later. So we'll be doing all of the theory in the mornings and the work in the afternoons around the application. So the 12th and the 13th, you'll be able to sign up. You'll see that go into your chat right now. And if you sign up for that, I will make sure that you get all of the materials that you need. We do them electronically. We are sustainably rich and green when it comes to this approach, even though having a manual is great. Kogan does a really good job at providing us with, the electronic book as well as the hard copy. So, and the hard copy comes, this is what I tell my participants, the hard copy comes just after the course sometimes, and it's a really good reminder about what
yeah.
So it's because of one of those fun tools. And then the next one that we're doing is in March, and we're doing 5 mornings in March, and that gives us plenty of application time. So the dates are sporadic for us busy executives and us busy people. For those of you that are in the Eastern time zone, it's from 8:30 to 12:30. For those of us that are on the West Coast here, a little bit different. It's a little earlier, but it works well in our executive time slot. So it'll be for the 5th, the 6th, the 20th, the 25th, and 26th. And you'll see that all of that information, you can find all of the information located on my website. Here's the thing. We're offering 20% discount for those that want to actually sign up for those courses. It's something that we do for professional development. And if you do have a team and you want to bring this in-house, it is so valuable. I have a special offer that I offer. How many participants do you have? And I offer free spaces so, if you're bringing folks in, we want your team, you want your whole team to experience it. I don't want to have any outliers where we just can't get somebody on. For those of you in Alberta and in Canada, I'm hopeful and I'm praying that we'll get our grant back, where we can do our training and development. Neuroscience, and these courses are well accredited and well supported. And if we can get those grant programs going again, that would be awesome as well. So there's never a problem with the financial side of it. We know that any APMG course you're going to get that support, but you're going to get the recognition across the world that you actually are capable here of doing this work. And it's not just one of those certificates that you just hang on your wall, Laurie.
Right.
It's, I'll show my book. It's not as neat as Tibisay's. You can see mine's all marked up. As with most of mine, right? We actually put all the pieces in there and it goes with me. And so people see it. And so recommended reading, at the least, mandatory training, hopefully for organizations as they progress. But I'm definitely, as a practitioner and a change manager, on certain consulting projects, we're building it into that timeline. And it's one of those key things that's helping us win, sort of promotions and things like that in organizations. So join us on the movement. And I'm so pleased that I'm coupled with great authors and great material and opportunities for certifications for individuals. Most folks, it's all about building capacity. For me, building capacity of individuals. It's never about me. It's about your organization and how do you create that experience for the change. So
I just follow up on one of those things from Pauline, which is that it is a truly globally recognised qualification. I've worked for APMG for 20 years now, and it's truly global. I'm working in Australia, I'm working in Canada, US. Tibby's about to tell you about the Spanish translation coming up, but here I am sat here in my house in Spain this evening, working across Europe on this. So when you take the qualification, it isn't just locally recognised. It is a truly global qualification. APMG International lives up to its name. The word international is in the title, and it really is true.
Hire me to talk to APMG and to make a qualification is neuroscience is not regulated out there. And this really was a worry that I had, right? How do we make sure that is grounded in neuroscience? We have the latest research, so a qualification gives you that. But at the same time, we don't want to make this a master, a MSc. I want to make it practical. And I think to me was APMG the right place to go, right? An organization that is credible. So we have that. It was also PEPE, the model itself was also endorsed by the Academy of Neuroscience and Education. So we're making sure the neuroscience part is regulated. Now the practical part, APMG was great. The partnership with Melanie and now with ATOs like Pauline make it really practical. And I think now it's going to Spain. Melanie, you say that. We are literally now translating in Spanish. So if anyone at the moment is in my Spanish network, will be very excited to hear that. I think launch will be at the end of April as well. So it's very exciting time. And I think it's unique times to get a certification in neuroscience in a practical way.
I Can't agree more. And we're going to give Pauline a minute to kind of give her last little remarks here before we wrap it up. But I can't say enough. Take advantage of the discounts for the courses. Sign up, do it. If you have any questions, reach out to any of us. We'll make sure all this information is also, in with the links in the chats and so forth. So, reach out to us, reach out to Pauline, any questions you guys have. I know I can't wait to get my hands on a copy of the book and try to join the course, because I feel like this is just such phenomenal information. And again, I know I've said it a couple of times, but your timing is just perfect here. So, Pauline, do you want to just wrap it up with another? What are your final thoughts here, Pauline?
I just wanted to get a final thought from everybody, about the practicality of this, and we did do that, and I really appreciate and value the work that we're doing. I really appreciate and value and have much gratitude to my clients who end up being, guinea pigs in a large portion of this, and my learning, and they're wonderfully supportive. And as we do that across the world, there's opportunities. And just a little hint for anybody that's looking in from Australia, I'll be there in June, July, and I'm hoping to bring it there for a couple of days as well. So please, I'm speaking at the International Positive Psychology Association conference there, and so it'll be there on front and center. I'm going to go and join Melanie and Tibisay in October over, and we'll look at the change capability pieces, but we're going to continue this work in change management, and it is our specialty, and absolutely love bringing you along the line. So thank you, Tibisay, for working with me, and Melanie and Laurie, you've been absolutely fabulous.
Absolutely. Well, again, I feel like this is the time. Our timing's right, and I love the idea of brain as the stakeholder. I love that. All right, so it looks like we're at our time. I just wanted to take a minute just to say thank you so much to the producers for the show, and keeping us in line with what's going on in the chats and stuff. Just great job. Again, I can't say enough how important I believe this is. And I just wanted to make sure everybody knows that, you can go over to our website and you can search for answers we have over 3,000 questions on there. It's a comprehensive free resource connecting you with over 200 experts from around the world, including the 3 wonderful folks we have here today. And also you can listen to the audio versions of our shows on your preferred podcast platform. So don't forget about that. And please, go ahead, like, subscribe, comment, all that good fun stuff here. It doesn't cost you anything. It really helps other people discover our content. So all details are on apmginternational.com. And thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody. And thanks for a wonderful show. We'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much to all of our panelists. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank
you.